Hello, welcome to another watercolor along with me, with Ms. Cooper. This one is all about a nighttime forest where you can see the stars coming out with a very colorful, watery sky and then some dark trees in front of it. So what I'm going to start with first is my sky, and you can't see it on this paper, but I did put some rubber cement down just to block out some stars in my sky, but this is completely optional. Now for me, it's a little easier to turn my paper sideways to get the sky in. Now, one that I already have completed to show you later goes from green to blue to purple, but I think what I'm going to try in this one is orange to red to purple. I think I'm feeling a wilder sky right now. To get started, you need to put clear water all over your paper. So I'm going to put plenty of clear water on because that's going to help the paint spread, because the paint wants to go anywhere that the water is. So I'll start with just the bottom here so it doesn't dry too quickly, and I will add more water as I go. So I'll just grab that corner there. Perfect. So first I'm going to add some orange paint. I'm going to load up my brush and start putting it on the paper, and look at how beautifully that spreads out. Now this is the area that's mostly going to be covered by trees, so we don't have to worry about this area as much because it's going to be somewhat blocked, but we want to make sure that our texture isn't too even because we're going for that watery, kind of interestingly textured sky. This is a great project for testing out different paint colors and seeing what they do when they hit the water, seeing if they separate, if they kind of stay together, really consistent, kind of playing with your brushes. So this is a good one if you are testing things out, or maybe you're newer to watercolor painting and you're trying to test the waters a little bit and see what these materials are like. So I'm kind of moving my brush really fast. I'm not really worrying about getting this perfect. You'll notice you can put little water blossoms in there. If you put just plain water in, it spreads out. And normally these are treated like a mistake when you're painting, but in here, you can do these just to make it look that much more interesting. So I'm going to add more orange paint over here and a little more water to help that spread, because we're just trying to get this inconsistent watery sky. Perfect. This orange at the bottom will look great for sunset, but we do want to transition that up into a night sky. So I'm going to add even more water to my surface and start putting in some red. Now the red I have in my palette is kind of a darker red, so this will take a little bit of blending. You'll notice that the paint is not really sticking to some of the areas. You can tell I definitely used rubber cement in those areas. Even if it does get covered though, I can still peel it off later. So I'm going to blend it in a little, make it a bit smoother because it won't stay that smooth. I will blend it back out. But what I want to focus on is blending into that orange. Right now the colors have this white line in between them, so I'm going to take that orange and put it right in the red. Really start blending them together. Make it more intense, and I'll add some water to help them spread out and become friends. Here. Kind of blend that out a little bit, make it a little more peaceful. There we go. So now it's kind of livening up that red, making the orange look a little more interesting. There we go. The last step is to add that purple to the top. So I will add even more water to help it spread, and let's add that purple. Now I have a beautiful purple in my palette that is very easy to work with. It's really agreeable when it spreads out. But remember, you can use whatever colors you need to. If this is maybe more of a chaotic sky and you're looking for a wintry sky with different shades of blue and purple, you can always do that instead, because this painting is really for you. This is for you to relax and just enjoy playing with the paint. I'm going to add some red to my purple, kind of like I did with the orange, just to make my color look a little more lively, make all of this look really intentional. There we go. I'll add some red right into the middle of the sky. That will look cool. Now what if I put a little bit of purple down here? What would happen? That would add some really cool texture to my sky. It would look kind of like there are some clouds down there. I add just a little more of that purple color down in my orange. That looks super cool. I'm really happy with that. So once you're happy with your sky, you'll have to let it dry before you add any trees, because if you put black paint into this right away, and I'll show you at the bottom where it doesn't matter as much, if you were to put those darker paint colors in right away, they're still going to spread out, but this isn't really what you're going for the trees. You want them to have some nice crisp edges so that we can tell exactly what we're looking at. So I'm going to grab a wider flat brush. Aha, there's one. So now I'm working with one that's about this size instead, and I'm going to use some very dark blue paint. I don't like to use straight up black paint. I think that flattens out my painting a bit, so I'll show you my palette so you can see what's my thought process here. So this is blue, shows up a little dark on camera, but I'm going to start mixing it in here. There are some dark colors in there, which is fine because I'm mixing this blue to be darker anyway. I'm going to need a lot of this blue, so I'll wipe that down into that space. Hopefully it will kind of start dripping in. Awesome, cool. So I have that blue. I'm going to add some brown just to kind of dull that a little bit, make it a little more interesting. And so now I have this kind of more colorful version of gray. If I spread it out, you can see that it actually is kind of purpley blue. Now I'll add just a little bit of black to it. This will be more interesting than adding straight up black paint to my painting. So now I'm going to shift it back over, and I will start in the middle with some of these shorter trees. So key to this is to just kind of press the tip of your brush onto the page and alternate back and forth. So I'm going to press here, and then 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 here. And you kind of alternate it back and forth to get this idea of a tree in there. So you kind of just flick your paintbrush back and forth, and then you can kind of seal up the middle if you want to. My bristles are separating, and that's awesome. I want them to do that. I want my tree to look more interesting. I'm going to back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth for my next tree. I'm going to add more paint because I want this tree to be a little bit darker. Back and forth again. And I'll continue going back and forth for each tree until I'm satisfied with my forest here. So now I have these 3 trees in the middle, so I want to kind of wrap this up and make the trees taller so that it draws the viewer in, and so that our eyes don't just get stuck at the trees. We want them to go into the sky a little bit too. So we will do some more back and forth with the trees. You see how making this curved kind of shape helps draw our eyes in just a little bit better. So I'm going to add more of these quick little brush strokes. There. So now we have these curving trees, and that makes it a little more interesting to look at. Your next step, if you would like to, is to start to darken some areas of the trees. If you want to maybe perhaps darken the top of the tree a little bit more because that part is farther away from you and you are seeing it more against the sky, you could absolutely do that. It's where you can start picking out those little textured areas of the trees, adding a little more, giving them a little more shape and texture, make them a little more interesting to look at. This is the point when you would do that. Now remember, just because I'm doing trees doesn't mean you have to. You could absolutely do mountains or other shapes in the front, maybe a silhouette of some people. That is entirely up to you. Maybe you want to add a moon to yours. It's all up to you. Now I'm going to peel away some of my rubber cement that I used as masking fluid so that I can see my bright white stars, but again, that was completely optional. Maybe you're going to carefully paint around those areas. Maybe you don't have any stars. Maybe yours is actually during the daytime, so there was no need anyway. It's up to you. So you can see how lovely and bright and white these stars turn out when I use the rubber cement. You can see it peels off perfectly well, so you don't necessarily have to go buy masking fluid. You could really just use rubber cement. It saves a lot of money, and it works just as well. It can hold up to a lot of water. Now, normally if I was making a painting that I would make for myself or that I would turn in for art class, I would add a bit more, but this is just for you to explore the paint and have fun. So the whole goal here is not to make realistic trees or the best composition. It's mostly just to play with the paint and see what happens when you let them all run together. So I hope you had fun. Thank you so much for watching.